Hey Raghunath, tell everyone about our Patreon community.
Sure, Kaustubha. The Wisdom of the Sages Patreon community is an incredible online yoga resource. If you like the type of yoga wisdom and culture we share on the show, then our Patreon community is a great next step. This is a listener-supported podcast, and any level of sponsorship will unlock a wide range of live and archived classes, talks, and even workshops.
Raghunath teaches, I teach, and we have a host of other excellent teachers on topics ranging from yoga philosophy, asana classes, storytelling, Ayurveda, kirtan, cooking, meditation, and a lot more.
We even have an incredible online Bhakti 12-step recovery group.
So if you want to check it out, go to patreon.com/wisdom of the sages.
All right, let's get it on.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Live from Super Soul Farm, this is Wisdom of the Sages, a daily yoga podcast with your host Raghunath and co-host and senior educator at the Bhakti Center, Kaustubha Das. Welcome to the show. Welcome to the Srimad Bhagavatam, our daily reading, our daily study of this classic yoga literature, providing real-world tools for transforming daily life. Is that sticking with anybody?
I think it's like you can use it occasionally, you know?
It sounds too corporate almost. You know?
Yeah.
A little corporate. Mara agrees. How's everybody doing today? We're going to dive into the sweet honey nectar pot. Any announcements, Mara? Oh, Madhu's giving a class, isn't he, today?
That's right.
Yeah.
Ayurvedic Q&A?
Yeah, so you can bring your questions and Madhu will answer them. That's at 6 p.m. this evening on Patreon.
Okay, so you can join our community-supported podcast by patreon.com/wisdom of the sages. We appreciate your support. There's a lot of people who listen live, and I want to encourage all the... I'm getting so many of these Krishna miracle write-ins. People are writing me
Here we go.
At Raghunath Yogi. Every day, man, Krishna miracles. It's exciting. When you hear these bizarre coincidences happen. One guy wrote me this morning how they turned on the show, they had some doubts, and then boom, there was an answer exactly to their question. So these Krishna miracles are happening all the time, and the more you dive deeper into your spiritual life, you start to see how life becomes more and more magical. It really does. And when you read them, like everybody's different Krishna miracle, like peculiar, like how could that even be real? Coincidence. It makes you realize like something's happening out there. Like you can't make these like connections. Let the magic flow. Let the magic continue. So we are in a great place in the Srimad Bhagavatam. It's Canto 2, Chapter 4, The Process of Creation, Text 12. Am I missing anything, Kaustubha? Important information?
Well, what I suggest we do today, now again, let's go back. Shukadeva Goswami has been asked to speak by Maharaj Pariksit, and the first thing he did was he began to go into this type of meditation. You know, he wanted to become, we ended yesterday talking about these 4 defects of the conditioned soul. They make mistakes, they become illusioned, etc., etc. I don't know if we should put Mara on the hot seat this early.
Well, let's get her.
All right. They make mistakes. They're an illusion.
Yes.
Imperfect senses.
Yeah.
And they have a propensity to cheat.
Right. Okay.
Very good.
Yeah, she's on it. She already had it up on the screen.
I got her yesterday with the 6 opulences of Bhagavan in our Sweet Baby Krishna class yesterday. She did very well.
So he wants to speak free of those defects. So what he was doing through his meditation, through his prayer, he was bringing his mind back to God, and so he was choosing to reconnect, right? And that was our theme yesterday. It's like we have this choice to connect or to disconnect, Now, today's theme is that when you reconnect, then Krishna purifies one. He purifies it and frees one. You know, frees one from our attachment, purifies one of all our bad karma, all these, like, all that dentedness, you know, that dented canness.
Well, I know.
You know,
I know
those
very
are-
well my dentedness.
Well, he frees one from the dentedness. He helps one transcend that dentedness simply by reconnecting. And so let's read, like, there's a good section is like reading from 12 through 18. And maybe we should just read them and then we can go back and dip in. But we'll see how Shukadeva is kind of saying how this purification, you could call it purification. I don't know if that's the best word, but like it's an upliftment. You know, it's transcending one's lower nature by reconnecting. That's what's happening here.
I love
That
it.
work for you?
I love it already.
All right.
Love it already. Text 12. First, we're going to start with our invocation.
So we're going to do the same thing, right? Right now, you just do a little invocation to reconnect.
Reconnect before I
Yeah.
start to speak. Narayanam namaskritya naram shaiva narotamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayamudiraye. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, one should first offer obeisances to the Supreme Lord Narayan. Unto Narayan, Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and to Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta prayeshvabhadreshu nityam bhagavat sevaya bhagavati utamashloke bhaktir bhavati naishtaki. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service to the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Jnana Tamarandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmadatam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Alrighty. Text 12. Sukadeva Goswami said, "Let me offer my respectful obeisances to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who, for the creation of the material world, accepts the three modes of material nature. He is complete, whole, residing within the body of everyone, and his ways are inconceivable." You know, I'm really loving that spider web analogy.
Oh, yeah?
I used it yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
I've never used it before.
It's a great one.
It's a great one. He creates the Maya. He creates the illusion. He traps everybody in that illusion. Yet he's like the spider and he's not being bound by that same web.
Mm-hmm. And then he withdraws it
And then he draws the web.
within himself. But you know what I love about this verse too is we're going to hear about how reconnecting purifies one and elevates one. It helps one transcend that lower nature or the bad karma that they've accumulated. And here it says, he is the complete whole residing within the body of everyone, and his ways are inconceivable. That itself is inconceivable, right?
Yeah.
That within God is everything, yet God is within everyone. It means that, like, within my own body, there's God, and within God there is everything. There's this incredible transcendental potential, you know, and power within, and we simply need to reconnect.
Reconnect.
Yeah, reconnect.
Yeah, not even connect. Reconnect.
Reconnect.
We are already connected. We just sort of forgot.
Yeah.
Just like this morning, I was telling Kaustubha, "You are beautiful."
You're
I want you to
beautiful,
know that.
Raghunath. You.
We were whispering to each other, "You're beautiful. You're whole.
You're beautiful.
You're valid." We are. We're whole. We're beautiful. We just forgot. Forgot. You want to hear something that people do, Kaustubha? This
What
is
do they do?
Be careful, people, because you're going to get challenged like this. You know, people are addicted to something. You know, ice cream, heroin, whatever it is, and then you said, you know, I'm going to get spiritual. I'm going to start chanting. I'm
Yeah.
going to get into studying sacred literature, learning Sanskrit shlokas, things like that. Then someone very challenging will say, "Oh, you know, you're just addicted to something different now. Don't you understand? Why do you need to chant all the time? You're just trading in your addiction for another addiction." And so this is the answer. We're getting to the answer to that. You're right, we are. We're trading in addictions, but this addiction's different. This addiction purifies the consciousness. It liberates you from the bodily conception. It lets you become detached from the things that are actually dragging you down. You're right. The mind will become addicted to something. We're not saying no addictions. We're saying get addicted to our source. Get addicted to our original relationship. Get addicted to authenticity. Trading an addiction for addiction. You got to get, yeah. Yes, we are. What do you think? You're just, I'm free from addiction and now I'm, so what? So we say, get addicted. The mind will be fixed on something. Let it become fixed on something that will purify the consciousness. This is the reconnection. And so, and this is how Krishna purifies.
Purifies. You know what I was thinking?
You're nuts.
No, that's the right addiction. Actually, you know, the very word Krishna, it means like attractive, right? Like and again, I'm no Sanskrit expert, but this Krish, this syllable Krish, it has to do with like attraction.
Yeah.
And so Krishna means the attractor, the one that's attracting everyone, and everything about him is attractive, right? Your Madhuram is your favorite song, right? It's like it's all sweet.
It's very sweet.
And so like there's this verse and again, this theme that we're going to have today is, and we're going to start to get into it. He's going to liberate us from our distress when you're devoted to him. He's going to purify one of your bad karma. He's going to free you from it. He's going to free one from attachments to good karma, and he's going to purify one of the lower nature, regardless of the birth. All these points will be like come out in these verses that again, the 16-year-old sage is just like pumping out spontaneously. But there's that verse that's often chanted like before doing ritual that really hits on this point.
Yeah. What's it is?
Om Pavitra Pavitro Va Savavas Dangatopi Va Yatsmaret Pundarikaksham Sabhyaya Bhyantara Suchihi Shri Vishnu Shri Vishnu Shri Vishnu
Pundarikaksham.
Yeah. The lotus-eyed Krishna, right? His eyes are very beautiful, right? So you can become addicted to it. He's beautiful.
It's very beautiful. But here's what I'm thinking, though. Because of what we know of addiction is very degrading. Like, you get into sex addiction or drug addiction or eating addiction. It not only is like, it binds us up, but it sort of degrades the consciousness. It makes us take our pain of this world and try to fill that pain with something that complicates our life even more, like deeper in the spider web. Then people say, well, I'm going through a hard time and I just work out. I'm going through a hard time and I jog. I'm going through a hard time and I do CrossFit. In one sense, they're good addictions. But in another sense, we can still have our problems. It helps. It assists us. It's like if you get a boil. You know what a boil is? Ever have boils?
I know what a boil is, yeah.
Horrible. It's like a super pimple that hurts. Mara, do you know boils? Okay.
I've never had one.
I've had them, man. I had them on my butt. You can't even sit down.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Painful. It's like massive. And you get relief from that boil, like blowing on your boil. Blowing on a boil doesn't get rid of the boil. It gives it a relief of pain for a moment. So even the healthy addictions give us a relief from our pain, but I can still be suffering internally. Whereas bhakti, the difference with the bhakti addiction is it actually relieves material distress.
Goes to the root.
Goes to the root. Matter of fact, it's a good time to call out Mara on the 6, what is it? The 6,
I'll call you out.
Don't call me out.
The 6 what, Raghunath? The 6 what?
The 6 things in bhakti that the
6 characteristics of pure devotional service.
Of bhakti, you got that?
Yeah. Play Shagni. You got that one.
Shagni, yeah. It gets rid of material distress immediately. Actually, that's the one I was really looking for.
Yeah.
It gets rid of your material distress. And more than anything, it's more than endorphins. It's actually, you see yourself in perspective with the world, and it makes the pain of existence just melt away. Huh? Really?
Well, the translation of that verse that I quote is either pure or impure, right? Whether we're pure or impure, whether we're a dented can or an undented can, or having passed through all conditions of material life. We all know about that, right?
Yeah. Don't remind me.
if one can remember the lotus-eyed Krishna, then they become externally and internally pure. Right? So it's a verse that's saying that, you know what? We're a bunch of dented cans. We all have different circumstances and situations in life. But the most essential thing in life is to reconnect. If you can bring your mind and reconnect it to that lotus-eyed Lord, then everything becomes auspicious. Everything becomes purified, you know? Your karma, your mind, your efforts, your activities, the results of them. It's all about that reconnection. And he's within you already. That's the first verse. And then why don't we continue here? Text 13.
Text 13. I again offer my respectful obeisances to the form of complete existence and transcendence, who is the liberator of the pious devotees from all distresses and the destroyer of further advances in atheistic temperament of the non-devotee demons. For the transcendentalists who are situated in the topmost spiritual perfection, he grants their specific destinations.
So so now he's saying that by this reconnection, one becomes liberated from all distress. Right? It's auspicious. Kleshagni. Okay.
Let me offer respectful obeisances unto him, who is the associate of the members of the Yadu dynasty, and who is always a problem for the non-devotees. He is the supreme enjoyer of both material and spiritual worlds, yet he enjoys his own abode in the spiritual sky. There is no one equal to him because he is transcendental. His transcendental opulence is immeasurable. Let me offer respectful obeisances unto the all-auspicious Lord Sri Krishna, about whom glorification, remembrance, audience, prayers, hearing, and worship can at once cleanse the effects of all sins of the performers. All are inappropriate actions.
Yeah.
And I got a long, long laundry list of inappropriate activities, thoughts, actions,
and the karmic
and the result from them.
the karmic results of those activities that he purifies one of those. And that's a lot. Well, and I think let's go back to this verse. Let's finish.
Are you talking about
18.
me specifically? That's a lot.
No, I wasn't talking about you. You're beautiful. I was talking about myself.
Okay. Okay. I'm sorry. You want to read that purport?
No, let's go back to, but let's read through 18, but I think
Okay.
we need to focus on this one.
Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto the all auspicious Lord Sri Krishna, about whom what I just read that. Let me offer respectful obeisances again and again until the all auspicious Lord Sri Krishna, the highly intellectual, simply by surrendering unto his lotus feet, are relieved from all attachments to present and future existences, and without difficulty progress towards spiritual existence. What does that mean?
So
They're relieved from attachments to the present and the future existences.
that means good karma. The good karma that I get now and the good karma that I might receive in the future. I want to have wealth and beauty and this and that now. And also through my good karma, I want to have more of it in the future. I want to be in the heavenly planets. He's going to purify one from the attachments to good karma. That is being mentioned here. And then the next verse, I think it may say also like how he kind of frees one from the bad karma.
You know what's funny? When you ask devotees, if people have been hanging out with people who are practicing bhakti for a while, and you say something like, "How are you?" Their answer is usually something like, "Today I'm good." Like it's never like, "Great." It's always like understanding that at any moment there can be a 180 of material situation.
True.
Today, so far in the material world, it's good. Understand, and there's like an awareness of the precariousness that we are in the material world. We're in a precarious situation. At any minute, a hurricane can come. Like disaster can. There's never too much attachment towards the present, even because we can. Oh, there's a 180 at any minute. All right, text 18.
17.
17.
Just pick one. Just pick a
Let
verse.
me offer
They're all
respectful
good.
obeisances to the all auspicious Shubha, Lord Sri Krishna, again and again, because the great learned sages, the great performers of charity, the great workers of distinction, the great philosophers and mystics, the great chanters of Vedic hymns, and the great followers of Vedic principles cannot achieve any fruitful result without dedication of such great qualities to the service of the Lord. There you go. That's a big one. All this Vedic teachings, all this Vedic information, all these Vedic arts, big deal. It's another big deal. It's another just a feather in the hat. You got to use it towards
Reconnection.
the service of the Lord.
Yeah, towards reconnection. Yeah.
Or else it's just another way to inflate your ego with your great Sanskrit grammar, your great Sanskrit learning, your great harmonium playing, your great learning of ragas, your great Bharatanatyam dancing, your great cooking, perhaps. Your great
Mara. Are you looking at Mara when you say that? Your great cooking.
It's all a useless Shrama Eva Kevalam, a useless waste of time unless you direct it all towards Sri Krishna.
So
Fortunately, I'm blessed with no talents, because if I got talented, I'd become very, very arrogant.
You're multi-talented, Raghu. You're the bard of your generation.
I'm really not. I'm one of these guys who squeak through life without any talent. Ask Parmananda, he knows.
Okay. So this verse is saying, no matter how good we are, no matter how good our karma is, no matter how undented we are, the true good results only come when we reconnect. Now the next verse is going to say, no matter how dented we are, no matter where we come from, again, the truly good results, they will surely come when we reconnect. All right, text 18. This is a famous verse right here, often quoted verse.
Often good. Kiratta huna andra pulinda pulkasha ambira sumba yavana. Members of the kasha races are even others addicted to sinful acts. Addicted to sinful acts can be purified by taking shelter of the devotees of the Lord due to his being the supreme power. I beg to offer my respectful obeisances unto him. This is huge.
Up.
Here's an important point. We all have some type of body. We can't say that the bodies are all the same. It's nice to good-hearted people want to find like, well, we are the same. We our blood's both red. We all bleed red. Our bodies are the same, but we've been programmed in different ways. I look at my kids. My kids are very kind. I wasn't so kind as a kid. I was like I was like Dennis the Menace. Some people are like, I don't even know who that is. Some people are like murderous. Some people to murder is not a big deal. And some people are philanthropic. They just want to give love and give charity. And there's some people who are very intellectual, and there's some people who are very simple. There's some people incredibly cultured, and there's some people who have no culture whatsoever. And although there is differences on the material body, there is a similarity. Our connection is with spirit. And I love how the Bhagavatam separates the two. And here it says, look, no matter what that birth is, you can evolve. You can transcend the body. No, we're not all the same on the material platform. We'll never be the same. Don't try to whitewash it. We are all different, and that's okay. And you know what? I don't want to live in a world where we're all the same. I like the fact that you and Mara are different than me. I wouldn't want us, let's all be me. Imagine that horrible planet. Let's all be we all have this body, but we are the same because we're all spirit souls. And that's going to extend even outside the human species. That's going to extend to the plants, to the animals, to the bugs, to the earth itself and the planet and the planets. And that's the beauty of bhakti, is we can appreciate the differences, but we find our connection in spirit. What do you think about that, Kaustubha?
Well, it's so important. And again, we often swing from one extreme to the other, and we miss the synthesis, right?
Yeah.
So some people, they see they focus on the differences. And a lot of times there's a judgmental kind of thing that plays in that, And
then we bounce back and have a reactionary movement.
Everybody's the same.
And we're all the same. No, don't you understand? We are all actually the same.
Yeah.
And then we say, but we're not the same. That's the pendulum.
Yeah, and so there are things that are the same about us, and there are things that are on the spiritual level. There's equality. On the material level, there's never equality. Now we want to be sure. We want to do all that we can to kind of give that there should be equal compassion and equal justice.
Equal dignity.
Equal dignity for every living being. But at the same time, there's differences. Now, what this verse is saying is it's going through all these different, like this Kirata, Huna, Andhra, Pulinda, Pulkasha, Abhira, Shumba, Yavana, members of the Kasa races. They're all, in the commentary, Prabhupada's going to go through and mention like where these places are. Kirata
Greece.
In the modern days, Santal Parga in Bihar. That's Bihar and Chota Nagpur.
Nagpur.
No, that's the Nagpuris. Well, Bihari's got a reputation.
Bihar's got a reputation, yes, it does.
Okay, and then the Huna is East Germany and parts of Russia. Andhra is still called Andhra, right? Andhra Pradesh. That's kind of like South India. Pulinda is the Greeks.
Okay,
that's
that
the
was
Greeks.
in there. The Greeks were in there somewhere, I thought.
Yeah, that's right. And Abhira is modern-day Sindh province, formerly extended on the other side of the Arabian Sea.
But that's the Sindh province. Isn't that part of Pakistan?
I think so, yeah. And Shumbas and Kankas says the inhabitants of the Kanka province of Old Bharata, okay. Yavanas, that's Turkey, the Turks.
The Turks.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And Kasha is, what's that? China, Mongolia, that area. And so the idea, and the idea is that different civilizations, we live in a world now that's more global, there's a lot more travel and, we zoom around these places and cultures shared through modern day media, and there's more of a blending of cultures. But we can imagine when this was written, those cultures are more, the differences were more distinct, right? Because there's not so much exchange of culture. But what the point is making is that no matter where one comes from, this practice of reconnecting to your divine source elevates one. It doesn't matter where you're from, And again, we spoke a little about this when we had Eddie Stern on the show, but like the idea of, I think the topic of cultural appropriation is an important one. I think it's also important when it comes to understanding the practice of yoga. But what it's really about is that one should approach it with the proper respect, and recognize its origin. So this verse, what it's saying is that no matter where you're from, no matter what civilization or what group of people you were raised in, no matter what your race is, that the process of bhakti, the process of reconnecting with your divine source, it elevates one from one's lower nature. And when one is elevated from their lower nature, they have the capacity to share it in powerful ways. And if we were to and it would be a mistake to say that someone born in, the eastern province, Germany or eastern province, or provinces of Russia, in Mongolia or China, or in Turkey, or for that matter, the United States or South America or anywhere in the world, the point is that this process is universal, that every living being can benefit from it and be elevated by it, regardless of their birth. So we should be real careful that we don't flip this cultural appropriation thing in such a way that it actually makes
it an Indian nationalist. Yoga is for Indians.
Yeah,
you missed the memo on what yoga is. We're not Indian.
And the point is, if you want to honor this culture and this tradition, then read what it says, right? And represent that. And so, let's read a bit of the Prabhupada's commentary to this. He goes through all of these different places and describes where they are, and especially he's drawing from the Mahabharata to establish that. But here's some of the commentary. He says, And some of the language here, he's going to use the word sin, I think, quite a bit here, and we could always understand that as like, one's lower nature or one's bad karma. And he's going to use like the word propaganda and maybe even the word cult, but just try to understand that that's kind of like archaic language. But he says, such cultural propaganda by the devotees will certainly be accepted by all persons who are reasonable and inquisitive. In other words, the teachings of yoga, when he says such cultural propaganda, right? The teachings of bhakti, the teachings of yoga. The teachings of yoga by the devotees will certainly be accepted by all persons who are reasonable and inquisitive, without any particular bias to the custom of the country, right?
Sure, and we hear that all the time. Like in my own life, I'm going vegetarian because I want to practice bhakti, or because I think it's ethical. Part of me being like Italian American is we ate meat like every day. I had to redo regular diet. So it's not like the country was sort of, my Italian heritage wasn't not encouraging me in vegetarianism. I had to like really work that out.
Right, from the Vedic perspective, right, from the traditional yogic perspective, a place where it's common to eat meat would be considered, that's problematic. That culture didn't, it still needs greater elevation.
It's
right?
the yoga memo.
It's just like, oh, that's unfortunate that they haven't understood, the problems with that. And that will have negative effects on the consciousness of the people, on their ability to be compassionate and to care for one another, et cetera, et cetera. But what this is saying is, without any bias for the custom or the country, this practice of yoga and bhakti is so essential. And when I say essential, what I mean by it is at the very core of all of us, that it will be accepted and will be appreciated. And when one accepts it, there should be no bias for where the person comes from, what their background is. And now he's going to make this point. He says the Vaishnava, the Bhakti-yogi, never accepts another Bhakti-yogi or Vaishnava on the basis of birthright. Just as that put a big circle on that, right? This is the representative of the culture coming to us and telling us this is not based on birth. Right?
It's huge.
Yeah.
Because even in India, you'll find people who will think like, yes, it's nice that you're doing this yoga thing, but you have to be born a Hindu to really.
Yeah, maybe in your next life you'll be fortunate.
Maybe in your next life you'll be born a Hindu by all this mantra chanting.
But for now, don't even step into our temple.
For now, isn't this cute what you're doing?
Right. Or even, hey, leave it alone. Like you can't step into our temple because you're so impure because of where you were born.
Sure, and that's a type of racism. That's right. That's a type of racism.
Certainly, it's a type of bigotry, and it's missing the very. It's a deviation from the culture that they're claiming to represent.
Exactly.
Right.
And even in America, we have this whole idea is like you're not by your birth. That we don't give a crap if you're born in a wealthy family. We care about you according to how you particularly behave. I want to see we sort of like hold you to your respect you, or sort of like have issues with you according to your choices and your behavior on a regular basis, whether you're born in a high class family or a low class family. Even the concept of the American Constitution is it's your activities that we're going to hold you to.
Or what to speak of Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech, right, where the theme was that he had a dream where his children, and other children wouldn't be judged based on the color of their skin, but they would be judged based on the content of their character. Right? So every living being has the potential to elevate their character, regardless of where they're born, what their race is, what their background is, how dented their can is.
Sure.
Any of that. And that's a spiritual truth. And that's why that speech, is so important and has been so influential, because it's hitting on spiritual truth, right? It's
character starts with our personal choices today, right now.
Yeah. So here.
Am I cutting you off today?
No, not at all. You're doing.
I mean,
Yeah. Thank you. I
I have a
appreciate it.
tendency to do that.
I just want to continue with
Mary,
this
you can
commentary.
she have
that's
a
all.
little thing she can hold up, like wave to me, like, "Here you go again."
No, you're not.
I'm a little obtuse, and I
No,
admit it, and
you're
I'm
great.
sorry.
You're great.
And to everybody listening on Zoom and the others out there, I just want to say I apologize.
I apologize to you,
And
Raghunath.
it's just like a big "I apologize" T-shirt. If I'm obtuse, if I say something stupid, I tend to say things stupid, and I also can change my mind. I'm also not fixed. I'm open to changing, and
Okay.
and if I cut people off and I'm a little rude, say something that hurts your feelings, please forgive me. I'm a work in progress.
Raghunath,
That's my public statement.
you're beautiful. You're beautiful. Okay. Now let us continue with this commentary.
Very good.
The Bhakti-yogi, or the Vaishnava, never accepts another Vaishnava on the basis of birthright. Now he's going to use an analogy to help us understand that. And it's going to be an analogy that totally connects with the person from the tradition that might have trouble doing that might have been confused and said, no, because I was born a Hindu and born in this Brahmin family, I have access to this and others don't. He's going to use a metaphor that connects with that person's mentality. And the metaphor is when one sees the deity in the temple. If you think that deity is just stone or metal, then you've misunderstood. Right? It's an analogy that might not work so well for the Westerner, but the message, he's speaking this message to the traditional Hindu, right? So he says, the Vaishnava never accepts another Vaishnava on the basis of birthright, just as he never thinks the deity of the Lord in the temple as an idol. And to remove all doubts in this connection, Srila Shukadeva Goswami has invoked the blessings of the Lord, who is all-powerful, Prabhavishnave Namaha, right? All-powerful. By reconnecting to that divine source, it doesn't matter where you come from or how you were born, it purifies you. As the all-powerful Lord accepts the humble service of his devotees in devotional activities of archana, in the temple worship, his form as the worshipable deity in the temple, similarly, the body of the pure Vaishnava changes transcendentally at once when they give themselves up, when they reconnect to the service of the Lord, and is trained by a qualified Vaishnava, right? It's a universal thing that anyone that practices it, no matter what your background, it has effect. It elevates one. The injunction of Vaishnava regulation in this connection runs as follows. Arche Vishnau Shiladir Gurushu Naramatir Vaishnave Jati Budhi Shri Vishnur Namni Shabda Samanya Budhi. One should not consider the deity of... This is a famous verse from the Padma Purana that Prabhupada's quoting to support the point that he's making. One should not consider the deity of the Lord as worshipped in the temple to be an idol. Nor should one consider the authorized guru to be an ordinary person. Nor should one consider the pure Vaishnava, the Bhakti-yogi, to belong to a particular caste.
Boom. There it is.
Yeah.
Drop the mic.
Yeah, so if someone's practicing yoga sincerely, to come along and say, well, that's just an American Vaishnava, or a white, or American yogi, they're not for real, or white yogi, they're not for real, or black, or, because they're not Hindu, because they're not Indian.
Sure.
Here's the tradition itself speaking against that.
There's no bodily conception for a Vaishnava. There's no bodily conception.
And to judge someone based on that external is actually considered entirely 100% against the tradition and extremely spiritually problematic.
Can I tell a good story in this regard? It's a good
Sure.
one. It has to
Let's
do
hear
with it. Radhanath Swami.
All right.
We were on pilgrimage. It was and we were going to Jagannath Puri. You probably know this story, but I'm going to tell you anyway.
Okay.
And Jagannath Puri is this very famous temple of Lord Jagannath. And they have this thing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's one of the big dhams, holy dhams in the four corners in the north, south, east, and west. It's in the east, the dham of the east. And they do not let white devotees in that temple.
They don't let non-Hindus in it, and they
No.
consider you non-Hindu based on birth.
Based on birth.
Yeah.
So I was taking a group to Jagannath Puri because there's many, many holy spots there. And Radhanath Swami we were with Radhanath Swami, and he says, well, where are you going? I said, Jagannath Puri. He goes, I'm going to Jagannath Puri too. Can I go with you? I said, of course you can go with. This is incredible. I can't believe. I go, how long are you going to be there? And he goes, just about 4 days. And I said, we're going to be there 4 days also. And he said, okay, here's what we can do. You can have your whole morning program. I have meetings every morning. And then in the afternoon, I'll take you guys all over Jagannath Puri. And so we did that. I don't know if anybody here was with me on that trip, but it was like a magical trip. So one day I just said, Maharaj, who are you meeting with every morning? And he said, I'm meeting with the king of Puri. I said, oh, the king of Puri every morning. What are you talking about with the king of Puri every morning? And he says, well, the king is a very, very cultured man. He's a very, very articulate man. He's a very, very learned man. Like he knows sacred literature. So he invited me into his home, and he was very cordial and sweet. And then he said, sort of everything sort of switched, and he started saying to me, why does the ISKCON temples worship Lord Jagannath on different days? Like, for example, there is one day...
The Rath Yatra.
For their Rath Yatra, yeah. One day of Rath Yatra, and it's according to the astrology, or to the planets when that day is. But in ISKCON centers around the world, they'll have that Rath Yatra on different days. Why would they do that? If the Shastra, if the sacred literature says that, how can you transgress that? And he sort of like started trying to almost like chastise Radhanath Swami. And Radhanath Swami's answer was, I understand, but Lord Jagannath is always to be worshipped. I'm paraphrasing here. So Lord Jagannath is always to be worshipped. And it is a detail of when we worship Lord Jagannath. But because Lord Jagannath is so merciful that if it was only on one particular day, the whole world wouldn't have the opportunity to have these festivals, because the festival travels around in America, etc. So
and you could only get permits on some days and things like that.
Yeah, and something better on a weekend or something like that. So we consider that a detail. But the principle is that Lord Jagannath should be worshipped. And he said, and then Radha Swami flipped it. And he said, here's my question for you. Why is it that anyone with dark skin, or that's a Hindu, can go into that temple, even though many might even eat meat? Many might have very sinful activities. Many might be, doing horrible things, but they can just go in according to their body type. Yet, people who completely dedicated their life to bhakti, but are white color, cannot go into that temple. Tell me why that exists. And immediately the king started quoting Shastra, sacred literature, about how non-believers cannot come into the temple because of the purity of the temple. He said, but they are believers. Right. They're believers who've dedicated their life to Lord Krishna, to Lord Jagannath. When the king, and I said, what did the king say? He said, the king just thought about it. He goes, things may change. Things may change.
Well, I'll tell you a story, Raghunath.
Yes, please.
So my wife Gita Priya and I we spent 6 months just traveling throughout India, going to all these different beautiful places, and we got to an amazing temple, the Guru Vayur temple in Kerala. It's a Vishnu temple.
The Guru Vayur temple.
Yeah.
I don't know that temple.
Oh man. Well, you can't go in. But we went there.
You sneak in?
I got in. Well, I'll tell you the story. We had been rejected. At that point, we had been traveling for a long time, and we're just a little bit run down. And we had been rejected at several temples also, like trying to get in. So when we got there, we were there for 3 days. And my wife says, you go and see if we can get in you just go. And then if we can get in, then I'll come back and we'll go in the evening. I said, okay. So I went there in the afternoon, and it was really quiet. There's hardly anyone there. I just walked right in. Oh man, this temple is like unbelievable. It was the most sattvic atmosphere I've ever been. I mean, it was really, really beautiful place. And then I went back and I found her. I said, hey, no problem. They allow us in, so we can go this evening. So then we went there in the evening where there's much more people. There's a line, and we were waiting in that line. for some time, maybe half an hour or something like that. And then we got to the front, we're about to go in, and then they stopped us. They stopped us. And they said,
You were just like, I was just here.
and one of the temple priests came up. He wasn't friendly, you know.
Yeah, sometimes.
And he said, no, you're not allowed in. Only Hindus allowed in. And I said, well, I'm Hindu. I said, what shall I do to establish this for you? Would you like me to quote your Bhagavad Gita verses? Would you like me, you know, how would you like me to establish? And he's like, we went back and forth. I wasn't getting upset or anything, but I was just kind of like, just trying to pick away a little bit at his conception.
How philosophical he was, or
Yeah.
the hired.
But he was starting to get a little tired of the resistance, you know.
Right.
I don't know if upset is the right word, but and then a police officer came over. And it's like the security person, and so at one point in that conversation, he looked at both myself and my wife, and I could more easily pass for an Indian, particularly when I've been an Indian for a while and I've got I got way more tanned. Yeah, so exactly. He looked at both of us and he said, "You, maybe. Her, no," like that. And then I said, so anyway, we didn't go in, and the police officer was like apologetic. He's like, "I'm very sorry. They have certain rules." Now we had arranged that we were going to stay there for 3 days, and that was the first day. So now we had like 2 more days in this place, but we can't enter the temple, which was the whole reason why we came to that place. So the next day, I was chanting my japa, and I would just circumambulate the temple, because that's another way of kind of like doing the worship, is you can walk around the outer temple.
I don't know if people outside of the Krishna Bhakti community say the word circumambulate.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever said it, Mara.
You can walk around it.
You walk around it, we circumambulate it.
So I was walking around the temple one morning, probably the next morning, and I ran into the same police officer. And he came up to me and he was so apologetic. He's like, "I'm very sorry for the way that you were treated. You've come from so far just to see Lord Vishnu. You know, I'm so sorry that you were not allowed in. But would you and your wife please come to my home? You know, would you stay in my home and you know, and we'll cook for you and this and that." You know, that's,
right.
You know, and so this is, again, where the Bhagavatam is at. What the Bhagavatam, you know, if you read the Vedas, the 4 Vedas and a lot of this earlier, you know, literature, a lot of it has to do with rules and regulations and piety and things like that. And people can become confused by that and become misled by that. And some, I would call them negative trends, have grown out of that. A lot of what we call the caste system today and the problems with it grow out of that, right? Where you take the differences and you blow them up and you make them the essential thing. And then you use that as a tool of oppression.
Beautiful way to put it.
Yeah.
Say that again, please. You take the differences.
And you magnify them.
Tools.
Yeah. And if you're impure, you'll use that as a tool of oppression, right? Where the Bhagavatam is all about is it's all about humility, you know, that's the real, it's not learning or birth or any of these things. It actually has to do with humility. With that purity that I want to reconnect with humility. And that's why we see the wives of the Brahmanas, you know, in the 10th canto become glorified, where their husbands who were such, you know, they used the pakka, right? They were such like, how would you translate that word? But just like
erudite, they were clean, they were...
Yeah. I can't think of the right word, but like orthodox kind of.
Orthodox.
Yeah. Yeah, proper and orthodox. But because they didn't have the humility, they didn't have any spiritual connection. Whereas their wives, who were uneducated and simple, because they had the humility, they had the total spiritual connection. So that police officer, you know, like that priest would consider himself so superior to the police officer. Right. I work in the house of God right here. I'm one of the people that can walk right in there and serve him personally. And I know all my mantras, and I'm from this family. you know, he might be thinking he's superior to the police officer, but actually the police officer, you know, had the more spiritual vision that, like, I don't care where you're from, the fact that you travel so far to come and see the Lord, that speaks volumes to me, and I want to become your servant. I don't even know you. I want to invite you into my home and serve you. You know. So and so if you say, well, which one's right? Well, go right here to the Bhagavatam, Kirita, Huna, Andhra, Pulinda. You know, it's like, it doesn't matter where you're from.
Sure.
That the practice itself is powerful and transformative and elevates one no matter how dented their can is.
I can understand the idea of unclean people don't go into the temple. And if you have like very bad habits, you don't want them in the temple. But if they're purifying themselves through a practice, then you can come in. Otherwise, you work on those bad habits, and then otherwise it's just become otherwise. And this is what, like, I feel like this is what happens like in Europe with like these beautiful old cathedrals. They're more like become museums, and there's a long line to go into the dome or to and like, wow, look at this, look at those stained glass windows, look at that organ.
Yeah,
it's
where's the spiritual Shakti? Where's the transformation?
Yeah.
Well, and it's all about transformation. This is how Prabhupada concludes this commentary. He says, the conclusion is that the Lord, being all-powerful, can under any and every circumstance accept anyone from any part of the world, either personally or through his bona fide manifestation as the spiritual master, as the Guru. Sri Chaitanya accepted many devotees from communities other than the Varnashramites. In other words, he elevated, based on their consciousness, Muslims, people that weren't even, you know, part of that Hindu Hindu society, people from all different backgrounds. He recognized their devotion and accepted them as exalted. Right? So Sri Chaitanya accepted many devotees from communities other than the Varnashramites, and he himself declared to teach us that he does not belong to any caste or social order, but that he is the eternal servant of the Lord who maintains the damsels of Vrindavan, Lord Krishna. That is the way of self-realization. Mic drop. Boom. Right? So these verses that we read today, 12 through 18, they're all playing on this theme that if you reconnect, right? Yesterday we said either we connect or we disconnect, that's our choice. But if we reconnect, he's inside the heart of everyone, so we all have that potential to reconnect. He liberates one from all distress for one who's devoted to him. He purifies one of all your bad karma. And he frees one from attachments to their good karma. And ultimately he purifies anyone of their lower nature, regardless of their birth, regardless of the background, regardless of anything in the past. The moment that we turn back, the moment that we reconnect, then that transformation takes place.
He is the undenter of the can.
He's the ultimate undenter.
If you're new to this analogy, the idea is like we have a past, and like sometimes you go into the supermarket and there's like a big bin where you get a dented can of string beans or something, and it's cheaper because it's a little damaged goods. Or what was that other thing with clothing? It would be like slightly, what was that, Mara? Like on clothing?
Slightly irregular.
Irregular.
Yeah.
Like I'm in a...
Oh, they have vegetables now like that.
You have to look really close at those irregular clothing. Like, oh, this one's missing, the sleeve's a little shorter. This one's got a hole in it. So we're in the material world, a lot of us have identified, or on the show rather, we've identified ourselves with dented cans, slightly irregular. You know, we get at Marshall's or TJ Maxx. I'm slightly irregular. But no matter what we got born with, or no matter what our past is, no matter what our poor habits were in the past, we're pure spirit souls. And Lord Krishna is the purifier of all those bad habits. Now, do we ever become like fully, does our material situation change, Kaustubha? What's your answer to that? Does that mean I'm going to be, or can my dentedness just keep my material life wrecked?
I don't know what you mean by your material life, but...
Well, I mean,
like
hardcore denting, like addiction or criminal activity or something like that. It really sort of, it affects us in this world, even materially speaking. But if I'm a spiritual person, does that mean all of a sudden I'm fully, everything's changed, even my material body.
Well,
and even my
the point is,
material mind.
once you decide I want to turn back, you're accepted, right? Once you decide I want to reconnect, you're accepted. And we may have, like, in other words, I guess what you're saying is, like, due to my background, I may always have a mind that's kind of a little bit disturbed or something like that, right? Or I might always have kind of habits that aren't the most elevated habits. But all that can be changed, but even it's not essential that all that be changed. What's essential is the change of heart. You know, that's the essential part. Externals may change extremely, they may change a little, but ultimately it's the heart that has to change.
You said change of heart. I hit the button.
There you go.
Paused. It didn't go. You started talking again, and it seemed like I tried to cut you off. I didn't mean to cut you off. There was
I'm not concerned about you
missed the
cutting me off,
pause.
man. You're
Mara's waving the flag. The obtuse flag, we call it. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. We had over 100 people on Zoom today.
all right.
What to speak of the thousands of others out there that listen. Others, tell us your story. Let us know where you're from. We're sick of you stalking us. We want to know your story. Go to Apple Podcasts, write a review, and tell us your story, how you got here. Hey, if you're a Zoomer and if you haven't written in on an Apple Podcast, let us know who you are, what your story is. There's actually a lot of people here on Zoom that I don't really know that well. Although we're getting to know them more and more, and we're about to announce tomorrow our Wisdom of the Sages retreat in Colombia.
Oh, we are? Okay.
January, yeah. Kaustubha, me, and Mara are going to Colombia. To our friend has an ashram there in Cali, Colombia.
It's so beautiful there.
Yeah, and it's a great way to get out of these New York winters and just hear the Bhagavatam and sing a lot and learn harmonium and sort of a mini version of what we do in January. So we're going to let you know tomorrow.
And you know what? We got to mention Sunday, we're bringing on Vaisheshika Prabhu.
We got a really special guest Sunday.
That'll be at 9 a.m. Eastern Time. 1 hour past the usual time. He's a West Coaster.
9 a.m. Eastern
California.
Time. Gotcha.
And but he is going to share keys to spiritual advancement, you know, keys to spiritual development. He's brilliant. He just gathers it all from the Bhagavad Gita and then he puts it out in such a way where it's, you know what it is, Raghunath? He's going to provide us real life tools.
Real life tools for immediate transformation.
That's right.
We got great guests coming up. We have the Shaka
Secret
Devi.
keys. Right, good to you.
Shaka Devi's coming on. Injunction Swami is coming on.
Oh,
The next 3 weeks are like incredible. I know. Look at Parliament is exciting. Jai Shri Krishna Bola Jai Radhe. It's homeschooling day at the Super Soul Farm today, and Mara's coming over too.
Oh, you're the teacher?
I'm the teacher today.
Yeah, but Mara's going to guest teach?
No, Mara's just coming over because Rachel's coming over to prepare for her wedding.
Okay.
Like, I don't know, not prepare for it, but just do stuff. Thanks, everybody. Let's get those hands clapping. Let those mouths start lip syncing. And if you don't know the words, you can just fake it like I do. Gentlemen, oh, and I smile a lot. And I shake my head when I sing like Vish does.